Hello everyone. As you can see from the video game filler in the background there, this is another Q&A video, but a little different this time. You see, recently I put out a video in which I called for more people to start creating their own content on YouTube. And now after I did that, my Twitter and Curious Cat accounts got minorly bombarded by questions from people who wanted to get started, which is great. So this is just a little video to answer a few of those questions and hopefully help people who are starting out. I was asked a lot of similar questions multiple times, so I'll be going over the most common ones here first, before answering a few more specific ones at the end. But before I start, I should say, I can only really go into detail about how I personally make videos. Everyone has different approaches and finds different things helpful, and like anything else, I'd say the best way to learn about it is by doing it. With that said, first up I'll answer the various technical questions I was asked about equipment and software and so on, and I'll talk about pricing first, I guess. So one question I've been asked is it worth me starting out making content before I have an expensive microphone like you have? Which made me laugh. So this is the microphone I still use, a Behringer XM1800S. As you can see there, it is free for £31 on Amazon. Now I have that running into a BTEC BT26 preamp, which is £25 on Amazon. And for additional audio equipment, I have a couple of microphone stands that were about £10 each, a bunch of sound paneling to reduce the echo in the room, but the price for that will vary depending on how much of it you need. That's if you need it at all. And of course you'll need the various wires and things to connect all that together. All in all, I'd estimate you could replicate my current audio setup for about £100, or about $140. Though this is assuming you already have a computer to record on. And I will point out that if you want to actually appear in your videos, you'll need to add a camera and probably lighting to that as well. I can't really help you there, unfortunately. So that's my basic audio setup there. Now, is it great? No, it's not. It's next on the list of things I need to upgrade, actually. However, it's also not that bad. You know, you can hear my voice fine, it's listenable, it's not too echoey, and I've managed to get to this point without having to change it. Now, obviously, if you have the income to spare, you can buy better and more expensive versions of all the things I just mentioned, but if you don't, it's perfectly possible to start out with something similar to my bare bones setup there. My one piece of possibly snobbish audio advice I'll hand out is to stay away from USB audio devices, microphones, headsets, and so on. Now, obviously different people will tell you different things, but I'm not a fan, personally. They don't sound the best, and even a cheap XLR/preamp setup will usually be superior. That's in my experience, anyway. Now, software-wise, I record audio in Audacity, I edit video in Lightworks, and I capture footage for videos with OBS, which is a streaming software but can also make local recordings. All of these are okay programs. I mean, they get the job done, and they're all free. I will say if you're just starting out and you have access to a better video editor than Lightworks, I'd recommend learning to edit in that instead, because Lightworks can be a bit finicky. But if you don't have access to that and you're not some sort of mega millionaire who can purchase professional editing software on a whim, Lightworks is a perfectly passable free alternative, so long as you're not looking to do anything too fancy very easily, anyway. So that's hardware and software there. I'll go into a few production tips here, although again, the best way to learn is to do it for yourself. For recording audio, firstly make sure there's no echo. If you're recording in a room with big flat empty walls and an uncarpeted floor, it is going to echo. Now I have sound paneling now, but in the past I would hang a duvet or some sheets around near the microphone while I recorded, and that worked just as well. When you're recording, sit up straight, take deep breaths, try not to fiddle with things or speak animatedly with your hands too much. Sit on a chair that doesn't creak when you move, like this one. Listen to this. Try to record all your audio in a set position without moving around too much or rearranging the microphone, or different parts of your audio track will sound different. I actually just record all my audio for each video in a single sitting to try to circumvent this problem. Make sure you don't have a smartphone too close to your microphone or preamp or you'll get interference. Try to record somewhere quiet. I guess that's the main piece of advice there. I believe some libraries have recording booth bookings if your home environment is like completely unusable as far as audio goes, so maybe look into that if you have to. Next up is audio editing, which is very important. Now obviously, as my recording setup is kind of cheap and basic, if I just record a track in Audacity and export it with no editing, it would sound fairly rubbish. In fact, it would sound like this. I'll read out the rest of this paragraph with no editing so you can see the difference. So how do we stop our audio from sounding like this? Well, in Audacity, or your editor of choice I guess, we can apply different filters and effects. Now the most important one I always use is noise reduction. At the start of every track I record, I leave a brief period of total silence, which looks like this, so that I can let the microphone get a sample of the background noise. Then if we select that part of the track, we can go to Effect, Noise Reduction, click Get Noise Profile, which will tell Audacity what you want it to remove, hit Effect, repeat Noise Reduction, and say farewell to the background noise. There we go. Now obviously you'll have to play around with the various settings to get it sounding the best, depending on your recording equipment and space. I also use the normalize and equalize effects with particular settings relevant to my setup here, but I had to play about with those to get the right numbers, so experiment and see what works for you. And the rest of the editing is just cutting the track down to the usable parts, cutting flubbed lines or coughs, weird clicks, shortening unusually long pauses, all that jazz. Now I do this in Audacity before exporting the track, but obviously this is different if you're editing audio that has to be fit to video footage of you speaking. Any cuts there will have to match the video or it will all be out of sync, so that's best done in the video editor. So video editing tips, well, don't ask me, I'm not the best, as I'm sure you've noticed. I can do things, I can make there be a picture of pyramids when I'm talking about pyramids. I can make that picture of pyramids spin around if I wanted to, or get really small and then slowly slide off the left of the screen. I can do it, but mainly my video editing only extends to showing clips and pictures that I happen to be talking about, and that's all fairly simple to learn, which is cool. But for actual advice I can give, first off, make sure you have a good folder system. I didn't know this at first, and everything got very messy. So now every project has its own folder, and then within that are folders for pictures, video clips, audio, and so on. In the actual editor, video editing for me boils down to dropping various clips and pictures onto the timeline at the right time. I import the audio track first and then add visuals to it. Now other people will do it differently again. You'll have to see what works best for you. I won't really go into any specifics here as it will depend on what editor you're using and the type of content you're trying to make, but there are plenty of great video editing tutorials here on YouTube, so give those a look. And in future, when you see a YouTuber you like use an effect that you'd like to know how to do, just have a Google of it and someone somewhere will have a tutorial for how to do it. Isn't the internet wonderful? So I realised a lot of my technical advice there kind of boiled down to Google it and experiment for yourself. So let's see if I'm any better at creative advice. Now, I was asked two particular questions multiple times here. How do I decide what to make videos about? And secondly, how do I know what I make will be worth watching? So to the second question, I don't know. Do you want to make the thing? Do you wish it existed? Would you watch it yourself? If so, it's worth creating. And that's rather simple, that one. To the first question, how do I decide what to make videos about? Well, there's two main answers here. The first thing is something that you know about and you want to share with other people. I get a lot of questions from academic type folks saying things like, I'm a historian or a biologist or whatever. Do you think it's worth me making videos about my area of expertise? And the answer is yes. More topics than you think can be videoified, to use the accurate technical term there. The second thing I'd advise making videos about is something that you don't have expert knowledge of, but would like to learn more about. For instance, I learn a lot about each topic I cover as I'm putting the script together. It's a great learning experience by itself, and I've found it's good for the old mental health to be working on some sort of ongoing creative project. So make videos about either things you do know about or things you don't know about. That encompasses everything, doesn't it? I am terrible at giving advice. I've realised far too late in the production of this video though, so whatever. I'm pressing on. So I'll give a few creative tips relating to how I make videos here. Now again, these might be useless to someone with a different approach, but here we are. So first off, I keep a list of ideas on the go. Now this is a .txt file on my computer with a list of video ideas, and I make notes on my phone or in a notebook if something comes to me when I'm on the train or whatever. Now it seems simple, but if you don't do this, you will definitely forget that great idea you had yesterday, so keep a pen and paper handy. This advice extends to each project too. Write everything, even vaguely useful, down as you go, and you can always cut out the unnecessary parts later. Now, I personally write scripts by, over the course of a week to a few weeks, making a big jumbled list of phrases and keywords and sentence fragments that are stand-ins for full paragraphs, written down as I think or read about the topic. Talking your ideas through with someone else can be really helpful too, as they will ask questions or raise additional points, and you can get a bit of a preview of how an audience is going to respond to what you're saying. So anyway, I have my big jumbled mess. Now, after I run out of material or things to research, or when I decide to stop because otherwise my video would be 4 hours long, I take the mess and I start editing it. I first cut and paste relevant sections together until they're structured in some sort of narrative order. I write an introduction with leading questions that will be answered in the rest of the video. I cut out any parts that don't fit, or I decide aren't worth the time to go into. So then when it finally comes time to actually write the script out fully, it's a simple process of fleshing out the skeleton structure that's already there. Now, this is all fairly basic essay writing advice, aimed at making a particular type of video. But there are lots of different approaches for different types of videos. Some people work better when they're less structured, but I like to have everything written out. So, again, experiment and see what works for you. I realise I'm saying that a lot today, but oh well. I'll move on to answering some more specific questions here, which are more about the culture of YouTube, I guess. So a Curious Cat user asked, "It seems like there's a pretty concentrated effort to shut down all left-wing ideas by brigading videos with dislikes and comments from the viewer base of anti-feminist and alt-right YouTubers. How do you deal with the intense amount of backlash related to being left-wing and pro-feminist on YouTube?" And this question was echoed by a few other people, including someone who says, "I've been considering making a political YouTube channel, but I am afraid of doxing and the likes. I feel especially exposed to it because of the various minority groups I'm part of. Not straight, not a man, etc. Any safety advice or uplifting pep talk?" So, okay, brigading videos, abuse, doxing, and the likes. It happens, it sucks, and there isn't a short or easy way around it, unfortunately. Now, I'm not too worried about downvoting campaigns. They're actually good for your channel, strictly numbers-wise. It brings in a lot of views and interaction. Likewise, in my experience, the false flagging of my videos has worked out pretty well for me. The one time a group of angry lads got a video of mine taken down through mass flagging, I saw a big increase in subscribers and views. And then, of course, because the flagging was not warranted, the video was then reinstated, so I didn't lose anything and it actually worked out okay. Now, there isn't really a nice side to the abuse itself, unfortunately, and I actually get it pretty easy, all things considered. All I'd say is don't feel bad about blocking or muting people who are arguing in bad faith. Particularly starting out, you're going to be reading all your YouTube comments and messages and the likes, but that gets old very fast. You shouldn't waste your time engaging with trolls who are only there to annoy you. Now, the worst of the things that happens is the doxing and attempting to mess with your personal life somehow. Luckily, it is only a very small minority of people who engage in this sort of behaviour, but it does happen. If you develop enough of a presence online, there will be people who try to find out your address or guess your passwords, social engineer their way into getting the reset question for your backup email that you haven't logged into in 5 years, all that sort of thing. So before starting out, I'd say prepare yourself for that to happen. Create a fresh email address for your channel and associated other social media accounts. use a new, long, complicated password, and be aware of your previous history on the internet. Did you used to have a DeviantArt account where you drew Mario licking Sonic's feet or something? If you don't do anything about that, the first person you piss off is going to find it and email it to your parents. So any old social media accounts you don't use, log into them and deactivate them, and put the ones you do use on the highest security settings. If there's something you've done in the past that would be embarrassing to be revealed about you, be upfront about it early on. Part of the reason why I keep mentioning I was a little shithead troll years ago is if anyone ever finds a bunch of posts of mine where I've said some air quotes edgy, racist or sexist crap, which I did frequently, I've already addressed that. For tips on trying to avoid this kind of extreme negative attention, I'd just say mainly be boring. Don't give them what they want. The people who engage in this sort of behaviour just want a target, and they don't really care who it is. If you give them the attention they want, they will follow you around and try to make you do it again. So just hammer that mute button, I guess. Let's move on. Another user asks, how do you get past the fear that your videos won't be good enough or as good as you want them to be? And the answer to that is you don't, or at least I don't. I see the flaws in everything I make, and they'll never be as good as I want them to be. But that fear is not a good reason to stop. Just try to make the next thing better than the last thing was. Someone else asks, how do you decide when you have something worth saying, or maybe more accurately, worth listening to? I've thought about trying out getting going on YouTube, but it's hard to know if I'd have anything of value to share. First off, I'm sure you do have something of value to share, but for me, this process happens topic by topic. There are videos I've abandoned if I realise that the approach I'm taking doesn't work, or there isn't enough material, or whatever else. You won't know until you try, I guess I'm saying. Someone else asks, hey Shaun, I'm currently setting up a YouTube channel. My first video happens to be about a popular YouTube skeptic spreading misinformation about the Holocaust and bordering denial. I keep asking myself if I should touch this topic at all, or if there are certain things that should be off limits, even when correcting Holocaust deniers. What are your thoughts on this? So this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and here's where I'm at with it right now. You can make a video countering something like Holocaust denial or some other similarly difficult subject, as long as you're kinda careful. First off, I'd say you should aim upwards in terms of audiences. If you have 1 million subscribers, it might be irresponsible to expose them to some obscure Holocaust deniers' arguments, even for the purposes of debunking them. So probably only respond to people with a larger audience than yourself. And you can debunk an argument without providing a platform to any one person. So talk about fascists all you want, but don't have them on the show for a friendly chat. And if you ever make a video trying to explain their views and arguments, include very clear and unambiguous refutations to those arguments. Don't give them an inch, basically, or you'll be doing their job for them. Another user asks, I don't find myself cultured enough to make videos. Should I wait and learn more, or just dive into the YouTube game? To answer that, just dive right in. Well, that was an easy one. Another user asks, do you have any advice on video making apathy? I used to make videos, but I hit a point where the enjoyment versus time investment became overwhelming. I've tried to come back a few times, but always get halfway through a video and procrastinating until the issue at hand becomes moot. So I'd say the big issue here is your concern about your videos no longer being relevant. And you shouldn't be worried about that really, unless you're making a channel that reacts to daily news or something. I made a video about the shooting of Trayvon Martin like 5 years after it happened. I'm working on a video about the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally right now. There's something to be said for missing the immediate response window and instead just getting the last word in later on. So maybe try being less concerned about staying current, or develop content that is just timeless. I've made videos about Roman history, for instance. It doesn't really matter when they came out, Another user asks, how do you get more confident talking into the microphone? I have one and it's good quality, but I always just sound really nervous. I find this comes with time. If you pick any YouTuber who sounds confident now and scroll to their old videos, they'll probably all sound totally different. So make 10 videos and then see if you still sound nervous, I guess. Someone else asks, do you think lefties who want to create a politics YouTube channel but without having to think like a culture war strategist should go for it anyway and make the channel? And yes, that's completely fine. You can just put out political content and ignore all the rest of the rubbish if you like. It'd probably be good for your mental health in the long run as well. So yeah, go for it. Finally, I was also asked a few questions about how to get views and subscribers and all that. Now, I'm probably not the best person to answer this. For me, it was about 2 years of producing video content before I broke 1,000 subscribers. Before doing political stuff, I was making kinda rubbish game videos. And then before that, I had another YouTube channel that I ran for a year, and that never really saw a sizable audience of any kind. I kept up with making videos because I found it fun. It's an enjoyable hobby for me, so just keep on trucking, basically. If you enjoy it, then just focus on improving, and eventually, if you're kinda lucky, like I was, you'll eventually hit some sort of self-perpetuating snowball increase that will leave you very confused. For more active advice, though, get a Twitter account and interact a bunch with the sorts of people who you think might like and share your videos. The first step to getting a big audience is getting a little audience. That's going to be all from me today, folks. Thanks a lot. I hope I answered all of your questions. If there's anything you really want to know that I missed, just head over to Twitter or Curious Cat and send me a question. Okay, thanks folks, and I'll see you next time.